And we're kicking off with NXT, as this week's show went off the air with a brutal attack by Braun Breaker, who attacked Von Wagner with some steel steps in the closing moments. As previously reported, the actual attack was not broadcast on the program. The screen went black as Breaker used the steps, and some of the NXT roster were said to be very worried during the spot. Viewers at home missed the attack, but clips of Von Wagner being carried on a stretcher after the show circulated on social media, but now footage have surfaced of the attack in question. From this angle, it appears the stairs did not come into full contact, but it's clear that from what those backstage saw, it looked like the steps had struck Wagner in the head. In the interest of fairness, we should remind viewers that a report has stated that Wagner was split open by the shot and that aspects went wrong, according to a WWE source who spoke to Body Slam. It remains unclear what exactly transpired in the closing moments of this week's NXT, but whatever comes next, expect Wagner to be hungry for revenge when he makes his return to programming. It's been less than a week since CM Punk's release from AEW was made public, bringing an end to his 2-year tenure with the company. While CM Punk had plenty of enemies in AEW, he did have some allies such as Ace Steel, but his tenure with Tony Khan's promotion has also ended. PW Insider reports that Steel was released from AEW yesterday, and this marks his second release from AEW, as he was cut following the events of All Out 2022. The report added that there had been talks over the last month about Steel possibly operating a AEW training center in Florida, but that of course won't come to pass now. Steel, the original trainer of Punk and Colt Cabana, first joined AEW following his release from WWE, where he served as a Performance Center coach and NXT producer. Steel appeared on AEW TV in the lead-up to All Out 2022, and would be on Punk's side for the backstage altercation with the Elite, which reportedly saw Steel bite Kenny Omega. Following the incident, which Steel's wife was present for, Steel was the only person released from AEW, but Punk advocated for his return, and Ace was brought back as Punk's coach/producer. AEW would decide that Steel would not be physically present at AEW Collision tapings, which led to a delay in announcing Punk's return, before both sides resolved that Steel would work remotely. Steel had been using Zoom to keep in touch with AEW, but that won't be the case anymore, as with CM Punk gone, there's just no need to keep Ace Steel around. CM Punk's departure from AEW has sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, with fans questioning whether Tony Khan made the right call. Some have said that Punk in AEW simply wasn't sustainable, while others have criticized Khan for releasing such a huge star, but his actions may have saved Warner Bros. Discovery from legal trouble. That's at least according to Eric Bischoff, who on his 83 Weeks podcast argued that Punk was creating an unsafe work environment, a legal term that'll perk the ears of any attorney. Bischoff added that if Khan didn't fire Punk and later brought him back from suspension, it could have been just a matter of time before a much worse situation resulted in bodily injury backstage. If that were to happen, then not only would Punk and AEW be in trouble, but it might have even put Turner and their other partners in jeopardy of litigation over his CM Punk fiasco. He also made the assertion that he believes Warner Bros. Discovery have equity in AEW, and that could open them up to a legal situation as well. While WBD would not have any issues paying for said lawsuit, the fact that it would happen would be a serious issue, and no doubt negatively affect the broadcaster's relationship with AEW. This theory hinges on the notion that Punk would have had another backstage fight if he weren't fired, something we'll never know for sure, but we now know it won't happen given that he's out of AEW. It was on the Monday after WrestleMania 39 that the blockbuster news broke that WWE were to be acquired by Endeavor in a $9.3 billion deal that would see WWE merge with UFC. Of course, this process has taken time to complete, but we are now just days away from the merger being finalized and the launch of TKO Group Holdings. Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics reported in a tweet that WWE CEO Nick Khan informed WWE staff that the WWE UFC merger under TKO Group Holdings would be finalized this coming Tuesday. This will likely fill many employees with dread, as the merger is expected to result in layoffs, primarily in departments where Endeavor already has the necessary expertise to manage WWE's functions. The belief backstage is that unless you're directly working on WWE's content production, you could soon find yourself out of a job, and Nick Khan has estimated at least $50 million made in cuts. It's never a good time to lose your job, but these things happen with massive mergers such as this, as WWE and the wrestling world prepare for a truly unprecedented time in the history of the industry. Whatever the future holds for WWE, it's likely to involve LA Knight, who is said to be in talks about a contract extension, one that could see Knight sticking around for the next 5 years. Knight has taken the WWE universe by storm with his charisma, catchphrases, and in-ring work, and now we know more about where his contract currently stands with the company. Fightful Select reports that WWE initially approached Knight with a proposed contract extension last month around SummerSlam, despite his deal reportedly being nowhere near close to expiration. Knight's current deal is reportedly set to end in late 2024 or early 2025, and typically, WWE waits until much closer to the contract's completion before they enter negotiations. Fightful added that some offers by WWE were countered by Knight and his representatives, and that his contract situation did play a role in WWE's seeming refusal to push him. The reasoning was that with Knight's contract set to expire in about a year, WWE did not want to start pushing him in case he left, and the fact they are pushing him more now could be taken as a sign WWE expects him to stick around. The fact that WWE wants Knight under contract for the next 5 years certainly adds credence to the reports that WWE now see him as a potential top guy down the line. Despite initial reservations that the 40-year-old was too old to be a major name on WWE TV, the company seemingly doesn't feel that way anymore, and expect big things to come if a new deal is reached. It was in July of last year that Triple H replaced John Laurinaitis as WWE's head of creative, and his tenure has seen multiple superstars brought back and several debuts. With the company having so many talented superstars, many fans wonder whether they'll be able to retain the services of everyone, especially given that certain contracts are close to expiring. According to WWE insider BWE, several deals are up for renewal, including all of Imperium, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, The Miz, and multiple superstars from NXT. Much has been said about McIntyre's contract, and while some suspected he'd signed a new deal given his Money in the Bank return, the Scottish Warrior is yet to ink a new contract. If that doesn't change, Drew will leave WWE in early 2024, and while we don't know a specific date, we do know his contract will expire before WrestleMania 40 if it isn't renewed. Just a few years ago, the idea of McIntyre leaving WWE and Knight being the top face seemed impossible, but we'll have to see what the future holds for the roster this time next year. At this time, WWE has several stars of the past under what's called Legends contracts, allowing them to make sporadic appearances and for merchandise to be made. Now WWE has 2 more names under such a deal, as Sports Illustrated reports that the Dudley Boyz have signed such a deal, which comes at an interesting time for the duo. After all, tomorrow night, Team 3D will reunite for the first time in years as part of Impact Wrestling's 1000th episode, which will be aired next week on September 14th. Not only will the pair be appearing for Impact, but Bully Ray is currently signed to a deal with Impact, and is expected to be with the company for some time to come. As for Devon, he had been serving as a producer in NXT up until January of this year, and the upcoming match in Impact 1000 will see Devon come out of retirement. It'll be interesting to see how WWE uses the Dudley Boyz going forward, especially given Bully's Impact commitments, but now the pair are just the latest stars under Legends contracts. Back to AEW, and it is unfortunate that the CM Punk Jack Perry fight has overshadowed what should have been the greatest day in AEW history, and all over the use of real glass in a spot. Road Dogg Jesse James knows plenty about dealing with backstage conflict, and on his Oh You Didn't Know podcast, argued that Punk was right and that you should never use real glass. With that said, James said the whole argument was small ball mentality, adding that since he's often in the backstage area where the fight took place, it makes him feel funny. James added that if Punk had hit Perry back in the day, it would have been acceptable, but says this isn't the case anymore, as the pro wrestling business has changed in a huge way. The WWE Senior VP of Live Events reminisced about the so-called good old days, saying, "It's sad that such fights can't happen now," but reiterated that the Punk-Perry situation was small ball mentality. Freddie Prinze Jr. has also weighed in on the matter, as the former WWE writer said that Punk always seemed to have an issue with him even though the pair didn't work directly together in WWE, and advised promotions not to hire Punk. Ultimately, Tony Khan chose to release Punk but kept Perry suspended, decisions that have received mixed responses from fans, and odds are we haven't heard the last of this backstage incident. With CM Punk gone from AEW, there has been speculation that he could return to WWE, with reports that Punk made a desperate attempt to return prior to signing with AEW. Next January will mark a decade since CM Punk infamously walked out following the 2014 Royal Rumble, but one superstar isn't opposed to seeing him make a comeback. According to Alfonso Castillo of Newsday, Zelina Vega spoke about her own experiences with CM Punk and wouldn't be opposed to seeing him come back. She said, "I don't know much about his situation with AEW, but I've always had a fantastic relationship with CM Punk. You hear all these things about him. I'm so big on not listening to other people's experiences, the dirt sheets, all that crap. There's so many reasons I'd like to see a Punk return, and not just for me, but for the fans. He's always been a fantastic person. There's layers to people, and when people are just so hung up on the outer layers of what a person can be, you get stuck there. And if you want to stay there, that's great, but when you get to know the core of a person, that's where I like to hang out. To me, Punk's been nothing but great." Vega may have no issue with Punk coming back, but the same can't be said for many within WWE, with reports that top superstars have made it clear to management that they're against the idea. We don't know exactly who feels this way, though Seth Rollins did call Punk a cancer back in January. And are you in agreement with Vega, or should WWE steer well clear of CM Punk? Last week's AEW Collision was the first without CM Punk, and it seems that the audience had quite the reaction to learning of his termination. Brandon Thurston reports that the show averaged 345,000 viewers and a 0.11 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which are all-time lows for both demographics when it comes to Collision. The show opened with 472,000 viewers watching, but after Tony Khan's announcement that Punk was fired and not on the show, that number dropped to 338,000 viewers. The announcement immediately cost Collision 19% of its viewers, though we can't rule out that those fans were only tuning in to see what Khan had to say and had no intent to watch the full show. By the end of the show, less than 250,000 people were tuned into Collision, in what should be a very worrying sign for Tony Khan about the future of the CM Punk show without CM Punk. At Payback, Seth Rollins retained the World Heavyweight Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura, but was attacked by the King of Strong Style after the show went off the air. With this attack, it's clear that WWE is setting up another match between the two with the title on the line, and while Rollins retained the first time, lightning may not strike twice for the Architect. Zero News has learned that there are some within WWE's creative team who want Nakamura to dethrone Rollins, giving the Japanese star his first world championship on the main roster. There are still many who support the idea of a lengthy title reign for Rollins, who has only held the title for just over 3 months, recently surpassing 100 days with the championship. We also can't ignore the role that Damian Priest could play in this situation, as Senior Money in the Bank has attempted to cash in before, but is yet to receive his World Heavyweight title match. Ultimately, it'll be Triple H's call, though that could always be superseded by Vince McMahon. And what do you want to see next for the World Heavyweight Championship? Later today, Impact Wrestling will host its Victory Road event, and for one veteran of the ring, it could mark the end of his career. The show will see Tommy Dreamer put his career of 35 plus years on the line against Kenny King's Digital Media Championship in what will be an emotional night, one way or another, for Dreamer. Today we'll also see WWE host its Superstar Spectacle in India, the first WWE event in the country since 2017, and one of India's biggest wrestling stars is set to appear. BW Insider reports that WWE Hall of Famer The Great Khali will be a part of tonight's show, and with Khali being arguably the most successful Indian superstar in history, it's fitting he'll be in Hyderabad today. This week, Gunther officially broke the record for the longest reign as Intercontinental Champion, and in breaking the Honky Tonk Man's record, has earned himself a new nickname. In an Instagram post by WWE celebrating Gunther breaking the record, which has stood for over 35 years, Top Dollar called the Austrian Gunther, and it's difficult to argue with that sentiment. Many have predicted that after this title run, Gunther will enter the World Championship picture, and on Busted Open Radio, Bully Ray said that Gunther could, without a doubt, take Roman Reigns' role as the face of WWE. The two champions do have similarities, including leading their own factions and having record-breaking title reigns, and many are eager to see a match one day between the two. Do you think Gunther could be the right man to replace Roman Reigns when that time comes, or does he still need more time to prove himself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. From one powerhouse to another, as Wardlow has proven himself in AEW for years, but right now the former TNT champion simply isn't being featured. On Twitter this week, Wardlow issued a warning to talent, while also making a nod to a certain disrespectful actions in AEW as he said, "Looks like I'm gonna have to play dad when I return and teach this entire place about respect." Wardlow hasn't competed since the debut episode of Collision, where he lost the TNT title to Luchasaurus, and perhaps it'll be the reigning champ and Christian Cage who Wardlow targets when he's back on TV. On September 20th, AEW will host its annual Grand Slam special edition of Dynamite, and during the taping of this week's Rampage, Tony Khan revealed a major plan for the show. It was revealed that Sammy Guevara will face off against Chris Jericho at Dynamite Grand Slam, with Jericho proposing a match to resolve their issues before they pursue to the AEW Tag Team titles. Jericho and Guevara have been allies for years, but their relationship is certainly a frosty one right now, and expect their match to be made official during tonight's Rampage. This week's Dynamite was quite the show as AEW continues to navigate in this post-CM Punk era of the company, and Punk's first AEW opponent had plenty to say after the show. This week, Dynamite saw Darby Allin prevail over Nick Wayne in the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament and praised Wayne's efforts in a post-show promo. Not only that, but Allin addressed Wayne being 18 years old, adding that if anyone has a problem with Wayne's age, the young prodigy has proven he belongs in AEW. Wayne had to wait for some time to turn 18 before he officially signed with AEW, and has been impressive so far, and Darby Allin is certainly impressed, as he made clear after the latest Dynamite. Now, WrestleMania is a show where wrestling and celebrity culture come together, with megastars like Bad Bunny, Lawrence Taylor, Mr. T, and Johnny Knoxville all boasting wins at the event. One name that comes up every few months or so is Cardi B, and when asked by Peter Rosenberg about a possible appearance at WrestleMania, the performer had this to say. "I mean, I would love to attend, I don't know what to do, if I need to perform or slap a bitch, but I want to go, I have to fulfill some type of dream." Cardi B has spoken at length about her childhood love of WWE in the past, but will we one day see the WAP performer in the ring? Only time will tell. Now, AEW All-In was the first event for the company outside the US, but it certainly wasn't the first for Jim Ross, who would travel regularly outside the United States when working with WWE. Speaking on his Grilling JR podcast, though, Ross said he's not sure how many of these long international flights he has left in him, saying he experienced leg pain with all that flying. Ross was recently declared cancer-free, but is still having to take care of his leg as it recovers, and while he had so much fun at All In, his days of flying massive distances for wrestling events may be coming to an end. Ross also spoke about the CM Punk situation, adding that while he doesn't have all the facts, he knows it happened, and ultimately the show must go on. AEW existed without CM Punk before, and it will do so again, and Jim Ross is looking ahead to a future with impressive talent, and hopefully without backstage fights. We are ending with WWE, as fans haven't seen Elias in quite some time. During his hiatus from the company, it appears he has had quite the personal experience that he wanted to share. Elias logged into Instagram and let fans know that he just went through a tremendous cleansing. Apparently, Elias used that time off from WWE to make a trip to Israel, where he was baptized at Bethany Beyond the Jordan. His location was tagged at River Jordan, Israel as well. We'll have to see if any of this translates into a WWE return. His contract status was questioned at one point, but he's still listed as an active superstar in the company's official roster page. Is WWE's treatment of Elias fair? Sound off in the comments below.